When I was in university, I majored in Japanese language and culture with a focus on Japanese history. For one of my classes, I had to write about a unique cultural aspect, so I chose to write about the Japanese tea ceremony garden. My writing skills back then were not the best, but I was able to write a decent essay on this topic. I remember writing and rewriting the essay a few times until I got to this point. And since I'm extremely interested in Japanese culture, and I am a teacher of sorts, I wanted to share this almost 5-year-old essay with you by reading it while I walked through the Fort Worth Japanese Botanical Garden in Texas. I will link the essay in the description below if you want to read it and check out the sources that I used. Okay, so without further ado, here we go. The Japanese tea garden is an iconic image in Japanese culture. The garden is a gateway to the tea house, separating the mind from worldly attachments and placing you in a state of zen and peace while traversing through it to your final destination of the tea house. There are many technical things that contribute to the beauty and serenity of the garden by means of its plants and rock selection, layout, and water structures. The seasons play a major part not only in the tea house, but outside as well. Choosing plants that will stay green year-round and those that like flowers are essential when traversing at any time of the year, portraying longevity to the guests, bringing nature to modern-day life and teaching peace through Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhists were also into writing poems about nature, describing features without clearly stating the season. Having a paradise away from paradise is ideal, but being able to explain that paradise is exemplary. Nature is what a tea garden is essentially trying to imitate. Although there are many components to creating a garden, it is about the layout that gives it feeling. Starting from the base, the earth is the heart or flesh of the garden. Shifting ground to make the hills and mounds and to set up the feeling and flow of the garden. If the earth is the heart of the garden, the rocks would be its bones. Although both can be used to create or make hills and mounds, the rocks are used to structure borders, mountains, waterfalls, direct streams, and make bridges. Next up would be the selection of plants. These are used to give the garden life, filling in the defects of the rocks and earth to hide some of the unsightliness while still maintaining their natural effects. These things, such as grasses, shrubbery, and herbs, are used to give it that hillside and mountainside effect. The choice of plants include mainly those that will stay green throughout the year. Pines and oaks are great examples, but there is also a selection of plants that will change with the seasons, such as maples, to help indicate season changes. There is a focus on not having plants that have flowers because of longevity. One predominant plant that appears in many gardens is bamboo. In Japan, bamboo is seen as a weed because it grows so fast and it is hard to get rid of, but it has many uses. Bamboo and other trees are placed to accentuate the sound of the wind blowing through the trees. The rustling of the leaves and the swaying of the branches brings life to the garden. To keep so many plants alive, there must be some water source. When creating a tea garden, a lot is considered about the land. Where there is water, there is life, but the original layout may not suit the need of the garden design. Architects take in consideration of the land around and work to their favor. Water can be redirected with rocks and stones to make a linear stream wind and twist for a different effect, in the same way that they can break up a small lake into sections. The water is meant to give a soothing effect to one's senses when traversing the garden or if they are just meditating. A water feature in all tea gardens is the stone water basin. This is the place where you would come to rinse your hands and mouth before partaking of the tea. Originally, this was from temples and shrines. It was later introduced into Japanese tea gardens as a ritualistic way to purify oneself of any impurities. Even if you were clean before you arrived, it is a show of respect to cleanse yourself once more at the location of these basins. On your way through the garden to the tea house, you will be walking along a path of millstones that will take you through the serenity of the garden. In the diagram of the Omotesenge tea garden layout, you can see that there are many different paths to undertake. While going along as a guest, there will be stones with markings indicating the direction in which you are supposed to travel so as not to go the wrong location. The overall goal of the garden is to take the guests out of their everyday worries and attachments and just for a short period of time put their minds at ease in a Zen state, peaceful and detached from everything but what is around you at that exact moment. This is meant to prepare the person for the upcoming tea ceremony. Nature has a way of changing the feel and mood of the environment with the changings of the seasons. When thinking about the seasons within Japanese culture, I cannot help but think of the literati poets of the Nara period, from 710 to 784 BC, and the poems that they wrote regarding nature. Although they never outright said what season it is in their poems, they gave descriptions that are iconic to the season. Below is a poem exemplifying what some literati might have wrote. Umi ichirin, ichirin hodo no atatakasa. A plum tree, just enough warmth for one bloom. The depiction that it is just warm enough for only one plum bloom to bloom is a sensual way of saying that it is no longer winter and that spring has come. These typical descriptions were indications of whichever season was being anticipated. The only seasons to draw attention are spring and autumn, notable in famous Choka by Princess Nukata of the late 7th century, in which she debates the relative merits of spring and autumn. Originally, spring and autumn were the prominent seasons wrote about because spring was the season in which you would plant your crops, while autumn was the season to harvest crops. Spring, however, was at first more prominent than autumn because of the holidays. New Year's and rituals for fertility and prayers for good harvest were done during spring in preparation for autumn. Spring was also the time in which plants bloomed and came back to life from winters past. Plants such as evergreens and flowering trees, which stayed green all year, were believed to have special powers, probably because they did not die over cold winters. The princess, however, thought that autumn overshadowed spring. She favored the bright colors of the leaf changes and focused on those in many of her writings. She was no doubt influenced by the writings of Chinese poets who wrote about such things as the changing colors of the leaves, wild geese, and the autumn moon, which did not gain popularity until the late 7th century, leading until the 8th century. In the Japanese tea gardens, as stated before, there is an emphasis on longevity through Zen teachings. Having plants that would withstand the harsh winters and blistering summers were sought after. Although they would not choose plants that are seasonal to having beauty only during one season, it seems that it was acceptable to have plants that bloomed flowers. The scent from flowers such as lilacs gave the garden a new aroma in the spring, whereas the scent from fresh crackling pine filled the air during winter. Summer was more of a transitional season between the two major seasons of spring and autumn, according to the Shirane text. And here's a poem by one of these poets. Hana no yo ni someshita gen no oshikereba koromo gaeuki kyou ni mo aru kana? Regretfully taking off the sleeves dyed by the autumn colors of cherry blossoms, how sad it is today, changing to new clothes. Thank you.